Good morning, my dear students, and welcome to our English online session. In this session, we are going to cover the last two chapters of The Man in the Iron Mask, chapters 9 and 10. Please open your books on page 51. Turn off your cameras and turn on your mics. Let me first ask you some questions on chapter 6, 7, and 8 to remind you of the previous events. I'm going to ask some questions and I want you to answer the questions. Why was Philip having trouble sleeping? Why was Philip having trouble sleeping? Who can answer this question?
Because he was afraid that they would figure out that he's an imposter.
Thank you, Habiba. Because he was scared that someone would realize that he was an imposter. There is another reason. What was it? The second reason is? The second reason is that he felt worried about taking his brother's place. He felt worried about taking his brother's place. So why was Philip having trouble sleeping? Number one, he felt worried about taking his brother's place. And number two, he was scared or he was afraid or he was frightened that someone would realize he was an imposter. We said that an imposter is a cheater. Okay? Now, why did Aramis not want D'Artagnan to see Philip? Why did Aramis not want D'Artagnan to see Philip?
Because D'Artagnan
knows.
Could you please, Habiba, leave this question to Salma? Yes, Salma?
Because D'Artagnan know Lewis more than anyone, and if he see Philip, he will know him that he is an imposter.
Thank you, darling. Thank you, Salma. Because D'Artagnan knew the king better than anyone, and he might suspect something if he talked to him, and he will know that he is an imposter. Thank you, Salma. What was the secret Aramis told Fawcett? What was the secret Aramis told Fawcett? He told him two secrets. What are they? What was the secret Aramis told Fawcett?
that the queen gave birth to two identical twins, and one of them was hidden in the Bastille.
Thank you. What's the other secret? Thank you, Habiba. What's
That
the
he
other
switched
secret?
Philip and Lewis.
Thank you, Salma. Thank you, Habiba and Salma. Excellent girls. So the two secrets are that King Louis XIV had an identical twin, and he and Porthos, Aramis and Porthos, switched the two brothers. So what was the secret Aramis told Fawcett? That King Louis XIV had an identical twin, and Aramis and Porthos switched the two brothers. But by telling Aramis this secret to Fawcett, his plan turned upside down. There was something wrong in his plan. It turned upside down. Why did Fawcett urge, or why did Fawcett advise Aramis to go to his home on Belle Isle? Why did Fawcett urge or advise Aramis to go to his house on Belle Isle? Why? For two reasons.
Because he had been a good friend and he felt bad for him.
Thank you, Mariam. This is an answer. Because he was because he was his friend and he wanted to protect him. This is one reason. The second reason is
And
because
he
he's
is
going to
going to
set
go
the
to the
king.
castle. Yes.
Could you please leave this question, Salma, to Ali? Yes, Ali.
Because he's going to set the king free, and when the king knows that Arameo, who is the one who put him in the Bastille, he's going to arrest him.
No, there is another answer, darling. Yes, Selma, can you answer this question? Hmm.
Because he's going to go to the Bastille and tell Lewis that Aramis and Porthos do this to him.
No, let me repeat the question again. Why did Fawcett urge or advise Aramis to go to his house on Belle Isle? Why Belle Isle in particular?
Oh,
Because Louis,
Bell.
Okay, Habiba. Okay, Habiba, answer this question. Yes, darling.
because King Louis said to the guards that they had
Soldiers.
no power
Yes.
to arrest anyone in Belle Isle.
Thank you, darling. This is the answer. This is the correct answer. So why did Fawcett urge or advise Aramis to go to his house on Belle Isle? Number one, he wanted to protect Aramis because he is his closest friend. And the second answer is, or the second reason is, the king's soldiers had no authority or no power to arrest anyone on Belle Isle. These are the two reasons. Okay. How did D'Artagnan identify the imposter? How did D'Artagnan identify the imposter?
D'Artagnan.
Philippe's
Yes,
face was
Mariam.
much more paler than his
Yes,
brother.
Mariam. Again, please.
Philippe's face was much paler than his brother.
Thank you, darling. Thank you, Mariam. Because Philip's face was much paler than Louise's face. Because he had been in jail for the past few years. Okay. Listen to this question. When D'Artagnan was just about to take his prisoner Philip away. When D'Artagnan was just about to take his prisoner Philip away, Fawcett handed him a note signed by the king. What was written in this note? The note that Philip read, what was written in it?
That Philippe has to
That
come to the prison of Saint Margaret, and he has to wear an iron mask, and if he takes it off, he will be killed.
Thank you, Mariam. The impostor will be taken to a prison on the island of Saint Margaret. The prisoner will be made to wear an iron mask to hide his face. If he dares remove the mask, he will be killed. Okay. Now open your books on page 51, chapter 9. I'm going to read the chapters with you. Listen carefully because I'm going to ask you questions every now and then to check if you understand or not. Page 51, chapter 9. Aramis and Porthos didn't travel to Belle Isle immediately. They decided to pay a visit to Athos first to say goodbye to him. So Aramis and Porthos didn't go to Belle Isle immediately, but they decided to go to visit their friend Athos in his house and to tell him goodbye. The two men, Aramis and Porthos, arrived at Athos's house in the country later that evening. Of course, Athos was delighted to see his old friends again. Athos was very pleased, was very happy to see his old friends again, and he invited them in for supper. Supper means a meal before dinner. Okay, a small meal before dinner, like a snack. So, gentlemen, said Athos as they sat down at the dinner table, what brings you both here tonight? Aramis explained the story to Athos while they ate, pausing only to take bites of the delicious meal Athos had prepared. Well, that wasn't exactly the outcome you were hoping for, said Athos. Once Aramis had finished talking, Athos told them that that wasn't the outcome they were hoping for. They hoped that Philip will become the king of France. But their plan was turned upside down. It was a great idea, Aramis, but also a great mistake. It was a great mistake that you told Fouquet about the secret. What will you do now? We are going to go to Fouquet's house on Belle Isle, Aramis replied. The king's soldiers aren't permitted to set foot on the island, so we should be safe there for a while. What's the meaning of permitted? The king's soldiers aren't permitted to set foot on the island. What's the meaning of permitted? They aren't what?
They aren't going there.
They aren't allowed, Lee.
Aren't allowed.
Yes, they aren't allowed. They aren't allowed to go to Belle Isle because they have no authority to go to Belle Isle. They have no power to go to Belle Isle. Now, so we should be safe there for a while. Then we will make our way to Spain. From Belle Isle, they will travel to Spain. Athos nodded. He shook his head. I suppose that's your only option. You don't have any other option. This is your only option. Because I'm sad, but I'm sad to see you go. I fear that we may never see each other again. You may be right, said Aramis with a sigh. Remember, my friends, said Athos, the king is a cunning man. What's the meaning of a cunning man? Cunning, we took it in chapter 1 with Madame de Chevreuse. What's the meaning of cunning man?
Not trustful. Not trustful.
Pardon, Mariam, I can't hear you, darling.
That he's not trustful.
He's not, yes, he's not a trusted person. He's very foxy. He's like a fox. Okay, he's a foxy person. He beats around the bush. Okay, the king is a cunning man. You say that he is not legally permitted to send troops to Belle Isle. Troops means soldiers. You say that he isn't legally permitted to send troops to Belle Isle, but the law has never stopped him before. Will you leave in the morning? No, Porthos replied. I think we should leave as soon as we've eaten. All right, said Athos. Here Athos is going to help them. See what he will do. I'll give you 2 of my best horses and some provisions. What's the meaning of provisions? Provisions means supplies, food and other things. He's going to give them 2 of his best horses and some provisions, supplies. If you leave, yes, Lilia.
ممكن حضرتك تفهميني اللي هي معنى الجملة اللي هي you say that he is not legally.
Lilia, can you please try to ask me the question in English?
Can you please explain for me that the sentence you say that he is not legally permitted to send troops to Belle Isle?
Yes, the king made a treaty before with the people of Belle Isle that he will not arrest anyone on Belle Isle. His soldiers has no authority to arrest anyone on Belle Isle according to the treaty he made with the people on Belle Isle, the people who lived on Belle Isle. Okay, so his soldiers aren't permitted to put their foot on the island. They have no authority.
Because
according to the treaty, according to the commitment he made with the people on Belle Isle, according to the treaty he signed with the people on Belle Isle. Okay, but as we know that King Louis is a cunning man. The law has never stopped him before. He can do whatever he likes. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Athos, said Aramis. All for one and one for all, said Porthos, raising his glass, just like the old days. Yani we are one hand, okay? We help each other and we never leave each other. The following morning, while Aramis and Porthos were settling in at Fouquet's house on Belle Isle, while Aramis and Porthos were on Belle Isle in Fouquet's house, the king summoned D'Artagnan to his chambers. The king called D'Artagnan to his room. He called him to his room. So, D'Artagnan, you are no doubt aware that your friends Aramis and Porthos were responsible for putting me in prison. D'Artagnan, you know quite well that Aramis and Porthos put me in prison. Yes, sire, said D'Artagnan. And I'm sure you've heard that they plan to take refuge at Belle Isle. And you know that they will go to Belle Isle. Yes, sire. Well, I want you to go to Belle Isle to capture them, to arrest them. So King Louis XIV asked D'Artagnan to go to Belle Isle to arrest Aramis and Porthos. To capture them means to arrest them because they were responsible for putting King Louis in prison. But sire, said D'Artagnan, we aren't allowed to go to Belle Isle. The treaty you signed a treaty with the people on Belle Isle that your soldiers have no authority to go and arrest anyone on Belle Isle according to the treaty. I don't care about treaties. I said that treaties means agreements. Agreements. I don't care about treaties, the king interrupted. Aramis and Porthos committed treason, and it is your duty to bring them back dead or alive. Understand? So, the king ordered D'Artagnan to go to Belle Isle and arrest Aramis and Fouquet because they committed treason, and it is his duty, it is D'Artagnan's duty to bring them back dead or alive. D'Artagnan sighed deeply. Yes, sire, of course. The captain is D'Artagnan. The captain left the king's chambers with a heavy heart. He didn't know whether he should be loyal to his friends or to the king. He's confused whether he's going to be loyal to his friends or to the king. But D'Artagnan had to follow orders. And a couple of hours later, he and a group of soldiers, set sail for Belle Isle. He and and a group of officers or a group of soldiers, they went on a ship to Belle Isle. They arrived on the island at lunchtime, and D'Artagnan and a fellow officer, and with an officer with him, disembarked and made their way to Fouquet's residence on foot. What's the meaning of disembarked? D'Artagnan and a fellow officer disembarked and made their way to Fouquet's residence on foot. What's the meaning of disembarked? It means that they get down of the ship. They get down from the ship, okay? And walked to the house of Fouquet. Aramis and Porthos had seen the ship arrive from one of the balconies. Aramis and Porthos saw the ship arriving on the island from one of the balconies. So they weren't surprised to see their friend standing at the front door. They weren't surprised to see D'Artagnan standing at the front door. D'Artagnan, said Aramis, it's good to see you, even under these circumstances. Gentlemen, said Aramis, this is a very difficult situation for all of us. I'm here to convince you to surrender. I'm here to convince you to submit. Tistaslimu. I'm here to convince you to surrender. Istislam, submitting. Otherwise, we have been instructed to take you back by force. If you didn't surrender, if you didn't submit, I will take you to France with me by force. We will never surrender, said Aramis. Aramis told him, no, we will never surrender. And by sending you here, the king is breaking the treaty he signed with the people of Belle Isle. Because the king sent you here, now he is breaking the treaty. He's breaking the commitment. He's breaking the agreement with the people on Belle Isle. D'Artagnan felt his cheeks burn with anger. D'Artagnan started to be angry. Don't be so stubborn. Don't make your head strong. Don't be so stubborn. Don't be so stubborn, Aramis. Don't you see I'm trying to save your lives? Don't you see, Aramis, that I'm trying to save your lives? Don't be so stubborn. Don't make your head strong. So that we can live out the rest of our days in the Bastille? No, thank you, said Aramis. Aramis told him, if we surrendered, we're going to live out the rest of our days in the Bastille. We are going to be imprisoned in the Bastille for the rest of our lives. We will not surrender. D'Artagnan turned to the officer, the soldier who was with him, who had accompanied him to the house, and instructed him to wait outside. D'Artagnan told the officer to wait outside the house. The officer nodded. He shook his head. He shook his head and did as he was told. I knew you would never surrender, said D'Artagnan. D'Artagnan is telling Aramis and Porthos that he knew that they would never surrender. What's your plan, Aramis? He asked Aramis about his plan. Well, some of the locals have agreed to help us. Some of the people who live on Belle Isle agreed to help us. They have hidden a boat in a nearby cave. They hid for us a boat in a cave. Our plan was to set sail for Spain this afternoon. This afternoon, we are going to use the boat and to set sail for Spain. And we will travel to Spain this afternoon. This is our plan, D'Artagnan. But we might have to come up with a new plan now, said Porthos. Porthos said, now, because D'Artagnan is here and he came to take us, so we have to come up with a new plan. D'Artagnan thought for a moment. D'Artagnan thought for a moment, for a while. Right, I have an idea that might give you enough time to get away. Here, D'Artagnan is going to help them to get away, to escape. What was D'Artagnan's idea? Let's see. D'Artagnan lowered his voice and explained his plan to his friends. Then he wished them well and left. He told them goodbye and left. But what about the prisoners? Said the officer when D'Artagnan reappeared alone. When D'Artagnan reappeared out of the house, the officer who was with him asked him, what about the prisoners? What happened to them? We will come back for them. D'Artagnan said, we will come back for them. Let's go to the ship. D'Artagnan replied. Once they were back on board, once D'Artagnan and the officer were back on board on the ship, on board means on the ship, D'Artagnan called a meeting with his fellow officers. He called for a meeting with his officers, with his soldiers. He made a meeting with his soldiers. Gentlemen, D'Artagnan began, I tried to negotiate with Aramis and Porthos, but the negotiations failed. What's the meaning of negotiate? I tried to negotiate with Aramis and Porthos. Pardon, Mariam? Argue. Okay. Okay. Argue. Parley. Argue. Okay. To speak to them, to try to convince them to surrender. I tried to negotiate with Aramis and Porthos, but the negotiations failed. So I have decided that I can no longer be the leader of this mission. because the negotiations failed, I decided not to be anymore the leader of this mission. I'm therefore resigning my position as captain of the musketeers. I'm going to leave my position as the captain of musketeers because I failed in my mission. What do you understand from this? What do you understand from this? This is D'Artagnan's plan. He knows that if he resigned from his position, they have to go to France again, in order to make the king make another leader or make another captain for this mission again. So there will be time for Porthos and Aramis to escape. Do you all understand?
Miss, can you say it again? Last thing that you said.
Okay. This is D'Artagnan's plan, Lilia. If he resigned, if he leaves his position right now, his position was the captain of the musketeers. They have D'Artagnan and all the officers, they have to go again to France, they will go to King Louis, and King Louis is going to choose another captain of the musketeers to go on this mission and arrest Aramis and Porthos. Okay,
Miss.
so he will give a chance for Porthos and Aramis to escape. Yes, he will give them time to escape. Yes, who is asking a question? Muhammad, do you want to ask a question? Ali?
No, Ali.
Ali, yes, Ali.
Miss, but I need to tell you something.
Yes.
If D'Artagnan helped Aramis and Porthos, then the king should arrest him.
Of course, you're going to see this now. We're going to read this paragraph now. Okay, now the officers gasped. They were out of breath. Gasp means they were out of breath. They can't breathe in amazement. And D'Artagnan felt quite pleased with himself. D'Artagnan was very happy. He was quite pleased with himself. He knew that the mission to capture Aramis and Porthos couldn't go ahead without a captain. This mission couldn't go ahead without a captain. And he knew that they would have to return to France to appoint a new leader. So when he goes to France, King Louis is going to appoint a new leader for this mission. In the meantime, Aramis and Porthos would have enough time to escape from Belle Isle. During this time, Aramis and Porthos will have enough time to escape from Belle Isle. Did you understand now the plan, Lilia? Lilia?
Yes.
Did you understand the plan now?
Yes, but the part that said the captain of the musketeers will leave his job.
Yes, will leave his position. He will resign from his position, as the captain of the musketeers.
To whom?
He said these words to the officers with him on the ship. Okay. Now, but D'Artagnan had underestimated the king. What's the meaning of underestimated the king? But D'Artagnan had underestimated the king.
That the king didn't have this much power.
Yes, he thought that the king hasn't this much power. قلل من الking. As if he has no mind to think, okay? But D'Artagnan had underestimated the king. A moment later, one of the officers showed D'Artagnan an order which read as follows. One of the officers showed D'Artagnan an order. This order was signed by King Louis. What was written in it? Let's read it together. If D'Artagnan resigns his position as captain of the musketeers, he is to be treated as a prisoner and must be returned to France immediately with the officer who presented the order to him? Louis XIV. Do you see now how King Louis was a cunning person? He was a cunning man. Everything is ready for him. He knew quite well that D'Artagnan is going to do so. He knew that D'Artagnan is going to resign to help his friends to escape. So he prepared everything. He made this order and he gave it to one of the officers on the ship. And when D'Artagnan said that he is now resigning his position as the captain of the Musketeers because his mission has failed and the negotiations have failed, and he was sure that his friends can escape from the island, and he will give them time to escape from the island. But the king was a very cunning man. He wrote this order and gave it to one of the officers, saying that if D'Artagnan leaves his position as captain of the Musketeers, he has to be treated as a prisoner and to be taken back to France with the officer who gave him the order. D'Artagnan's face turned pale, turned white. The officer escorted him to a small boat. The officer accompanied him, took him to a small boat which had been lowered into the sea. Then the two men set sail, as you see in the picture. Then the two men set sail. In the distance, D'Artagnan could hear the sound of gunfire. The king's soldiers were attacking Belle Isle. Aramis and Porthos had no hope of escape now. Now, let's open your booklet, page 36. Open your booklets, page 36. Open your booklets, page 36. Number 1. I want you to answer in your own words. First, don't look at the answer. Answer in your own words. Number 1. So, gentlemen, what brings you both here tonight? Comment. Who can answer this question?
أقول
Who, Lilia?
لا روفينا.
Rovina. Okay, yes, darling. Say Rovina, the answer.
Also that to Aramis and Porthos when they go to their house to tell he goodbye.
Okay, thank you, darling. And he invited them for supper. And Aramis told Athos their story. Okay, thank you, darling. Write down the answer quickly. Athos said this to his friends Aramis and Porthos, who stopped at his house in the country to say goodbye to him. He invited them for supper, and Aramis explained the story to him. Number 2. What did the king order D'Artagnan to do? What did the king order D'Artagnan to do? Who can answer this question? In your own words.
To go
Don't
and
look at the answer.
Aramis and Porthos.
Yes, Rovina.
To go and arrest Aramis and Porthos in Belle Isle.
And bring them what? Dead or
Killed or alive.
alive? Thank you, darling. The king ordered D'Artagnan to go to Belle Isle to capture or to arrest Aramis and Porthos. He told him that it was his duty to bring them back dead or alive. It was D'Artagnan's duty to bring them back dead or alive. What was written in the king's order to one of the officers? What was written in the king's order to one of the officers?
Miss,
Yes. Yes, Ali.
it was written that if D'Artagnan resigned his position as a captain of musketeers.
Don't read, Ali. I want your own
Okay.
answer. Yes.
Then
Yes,
he
darling.
should be prisoned and return back to France
Mhm.
with the officer who gave him
The order.
the order.
The order. Thank you, Ali. Excellent, darling. It was written that if D'Artagnan resigned or leaves or left, you can write resigned or left. If D'Artagnan resigned his position as captain of the musketeers, he must be treated as a prisoner and be returned to France immediately with the officer who presented or who gave the order to him.
Can you repeat the answer?
Okay, حاضر. It was written that if D'Artagnan resigned his position as captain of the musketeers, he must be treated as a prisoner and be returned to France immediately with the officer who presented the order to him. Now, chapter 10. Chapter 10, page 56. Chapter 10, page 56. What was that? Asked Porthos as he rushed out to join Aramis, who was standing on the balcony. Porthos is asking, what's going on? I can hear gunfire. What's going on? Gunfire, Aramis cried. Aramis told him this is gunfire. The soldiers are coming for us. The soldiers are on their way to us. They are coming for us. But what about D'Artagnan's plan? Porthos is asking Aramis, what about D'Artagnan's plan? It must have failed. Aramis told him that maybe his plan has failed. Quick, Porthos. We have to go to the cave immediately. Quickly, Porthos. We have to go to the cave immediately and take the boat from there and sail to Spain. The two men raced down the stairs of Fouquet's house and dashed out the front door. What's the meaning of dashed out? They ran out from the front door. They ran along the beach front in the direction of Locomaria Cave. They ran along the beach front in the direction of Locomaria Cave. This is the name of the cave. It's called Locomaria. Where two people from Belle Isle, the people who are going to help them, where two locals, Eve and Joanne, had hidden the boat that would take them to safety. Eve and Joanne, they hid the boat in the cave, and this boat is going to take them to safety, to Spain. Suddenly, Aramis heard Porthos cry out in pain. Suddenly, Porthos was shot, and Aramis could hear him cry out in pain. He is in severe pain. He turned around, Aramis turned around, and to his horror, saw his friend stumble and fall onto the soft sand, as you can see in the picture. Porthos fell on the sand. He was shot in his back. Porthos, cried Aramis. I've been shot, said Porthos. Porthos told Aramis that he has been shot. Aramis, run for your life. Please, Aramis, run for your life and leave me. No, said Aramis, I won't leave you here. I will never leave you here. I will take you with me. In the distance, the bishop could see. Who is the bishop? Who is the bishop? Aramis, bishop of Vannes. Okay. The bishop could see a group of soldiers racing towards them. He could see a group of soldiers coming towards them. They are running towards them. The soldiers are chasing us, Aramis shouted to the young men who were waiting for them. Aramis told the two men, Eve and Joanne, that the soldiers are running after them. They are chasing them. They are running after them. Eve helped Aramis carry Porthos towards the cave. Eve helped Aramis to take Porthos towards the cave, while Joanne pulled out his gun and started shooting at the soldiers. You don't have much time, shouted Joanne. Aramis and Eve laid Porthos on the ground. They put Porthos on the ground and examined the bullet wound in his back. Okay, the wound is in his back. He was shot in his back. It's bad, said Eve. Eve said, it is a bad wound. You won't be able to take him with you. Aramis, you won't be able to take Porthos with you. Aramis's eyes filled with tears. He started to cry. His eyes were filled with tears. Oh, Porthos, he exclaimed. I'm so sorry. I wish I'd never involved you in all of this. Aramis, Porthos said, you must go. You must save yourself. But go, whispered Porthos. He is right, said Eve. They will shoot you too if you stay. Eve told Aramis that if you stay beside your friend Porthos, they will shoot you too. The soldiers or the officers will shoot you too. Eve helped the reluctant Aramis into the boat. What's the meaning of reluctant? Into the boat. Eve helped the reluctant Aramis into the boat.
Indecisive.
Reluctant, Mariam, means unwilling. He was unwilling to go into the boat and leave his friend Porthos. Okay? So Eve helped the reluctant Aramis into the boat and pushed it out to sea. He pushed the boat out to sea. Good luck, he shouted as the bishop lifted up the sail and waited for the winds to carry him to Spain. Now, Aramis is alone on the boat. He was sailing to Spain. Okay? But it wasn't to be. But it wasn't to be. His plan to travel to Spain has failed also. But it wasn't to be. Aramis had been sailing for an hour when he saw the king's ship following him in the distance. The king's ship was following him. Soon the ship caught up with him and the soldiers opened fire. The soldiers started to open their fire towards Aramis. The bishop had no choice but to surrender. Okay? We said before, what's the meaning of surrender? What's the meaning of surrender? He had to surrender. What's the meaning of surrender? To
Give up.
submit. To submit. He waved a white cloth in the air and waited for the soldiers to arrest him. He waved a white cloth in the air. This means that he surrenders, and he waited for the soldiers to arrest him. Meanwhile, in this time, D'Artagnan had arrived in Paris, where the king summoned him to his chambers once again. The king called him to his room once again. D'Artagnan, you ignored my orders in an attempt to save your friends, said the king. King Louis told D'Artagnan that he ignored his orders in an attempt means in a try to save his friends. D'Artagnan glared. Glared means stared, looked in the king's eyes. D'Artagnan glared at the king angrily, but said nothing. Even though you disobeyed me, the king continued. Even though you disobeyed me, you didn't listen to my orders, I have decided to give you a second chance. So the king now is going to give D'Artagnan a second chance, even though he disobeyed his orders. You have always been my most loyal servant. You have been always my most loyal servant, and I want you to remain captain of the musketeers because you have been always my loyal servant. I want you to remain as the captain of the musketeers. I'm going to give you another chance, even though you disobeyed me. Thank you, sire, said D'Artagnan. But what about Aramis and Porthos? What happened to them? The king sighed. Porthos was killed on Belle Isle. Your friend Porthos was killed on Belle Isle. Aramis surrendered and is being taken to the Bastille as we speak. As we speak right now, Aramis was taken to the Bastille. He is scheduled to be hanged in 3 days' time. He's going to be hanged after 3 days. What's the meaning of hanged?
يتعادل.
He's going, pardon? Yes, Ravina? Okay, he's going to be killed. He's going to be executed. He's going to be killed. He's going to be executed. He's going to be hanged after 3 days. D'Artagnan gasped in horror. He was out of breath. He can't breathe. No, he cried. Porthos dead? Aramis hanged? Please, sire, I beg you, please let him live. He is a good man. He's talking about Aramis. He's a good man, and he was an outstanding musketeer. He was an excellent musketeer. He has been a friend and advisor to the royal family for years. Now, D'Artagnan is begging King Louis not to hang or not to execute or not to kill Aramis, because Aramis was a good man and he was he was an excellent musketeer, and he has been a friend and advisor to all the members of the royal family for years. Can you see in the picture here, D'Artagnan is begging, he's sitting on his knees, he's begging King Louis. He has been a friend and advisor to the royal family for years, and he committed treason, said the king. I'm afraid I cannot pardon that. But sire, said D'Artagnan, falling to his knees in front of the king, I beg you, please. My mind is made up, D'Artagnan, said the king. What's the meaning of made up? I decided and you have to obey my orders. Made up means I decided and you have to obey my orders. D'Artagnan stood up and left the king's chambers without a word. Aramis, he's speaking back to himself. Aramis was going to be hanged, and there was nothing he could do to save his friend. D'Artagnan has nothing to do to save his friend Aramis. In the meantime, Aramis had arrived at the Bastille. Aramis had arrived to the Bastille, where Bezamu was waiting to receive him. We know that Bezamu is the governor of the Bastille, and Bezamu was a close friend to Aramis. Bezamu was waiting to receive Aramis. Old friend, he said to the bishop as he locked him in his cell. Bezamu, the governor of the Bastille, locked Aramis in his cell. He put him in his prison room. And he told him, old friend, it pains me to do this for you. This pains me, putting you in the cell. This pains me. I'm so sorry for you, Aramis. It pains me even more, said Aramis. Aramis told him, you feel pain towards me. I feel pain towards myself. The bishop sat down on a wooden chair and sighed. He deeply regretted everything. Aramis deeply regretted everything he did. He regretted switching the two brothers. He regretted telling the secret of the identical twins to Fouquet. He regretted everything that had happened and was particularly saddened by the death of Porthos. He was very sad because his friend Porthos had died. All he could do now was accept his fate with dignity. All what Aramis can do now is to accept his destiny with respect. To accept his fate, to accept his destiny with respect, with dignity. on the evening before Aramis's execution. The evening before Aramis's execution. Execution means killing, hanging. A priest, of course, in England, before any execution, in England, in France, in Europe, okay, before any execution, there should be a priest that comes to the person who will be hanged, who will be executed, and listens to his confession and listens to his confessions. Oh, what's the meaning of confessions? Confessions means recognitions, اعترافات. The person who is going to, who will be hanged has to tell the priest all his confessions. He has to tell them whether he is guilty or not, whether he did something wrong or not, is he innocent or guilty, and so on. So, on the evening before Aramis's execution, a priest wearing a cloak which covered his face came to the Bastille to listen to Aramis's confession. The priest's voice was rough and low. The priest's voice was tough, was cruel, was severe and low. But Aramis was sure it sounded familiar. Aramis thinks that this voice is familiar to him. He heard this voice before. He thinks that it is familiar to him. Who do you think the priest is? Who do you think the priest is?
D'Artagnan.
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 Yes, thank you, Mariam, and thank you, Ali. D'Artagnan. This priest is D'Artagnan. He's wearing a cloak, covered his face, not to let anyone know him. Okay? And Aramis thinks that this voice sounded familiar. Once Aramis had confessed, the priest handed him a Bible. The priest gave him a Bible. Of course, you know what's the meaning of Bible. A religious book, Bible, a religious book, the book of religion. Okay? The solution to your problem is in here, said the priest. The priest told Aramis that the solution for his problem is in here, in the Bible. Aramis thanked him for the Bible, and the priest left in a hurry. The bishop decided to read a few pages from the Bible before he went to sleep. Look at the picture in front of you. What was in the Bible? What was in the Bible?
A key.
A key. This key will open what?
The prison door.
Yes, will open the
Aramis
prison
cell.
door, or will open the cell door. Now, the bishop decided to read a few pages from the Bible before he went to sleep. So he lit a candle and settled down on the bed. When he opened the book, when he opened the Bible, he gasped in surprise. There was a key inside the book, a key to his jail cell. Aramis jumped off the bed and danced around his cell with joy. D'Artagnan, he whispered to himself, I knew it was you. Here Aramis is speaking to himself. He said that, I knew it was you, D'Artagnan. You are the priest. You came to help me. You came to give me another chance to let me escape from the prison. Thank you, D'Artagnan. Aramis waited until he was sure the other prisoners were asleep. Then he quietly unlocked his cell. He opened his cell and carefully walked down the dark passageway. Passageway means the corridor. He was familiar with the guards' routes. He knows the guards' ways. He was familiar because he every now and then visits Bizamu in the Bastille. So he knows the routes of the guards. He knows the ways of the guards. So he knew that he had a few minutes to make his escape. By the time Aramis reached the courtyard, the guards outside had fallen asleep. When Aramis reached or went to the courtyard, the guards were asleep, and no one saw him climb over the gates. He climbed over the gates and disappeared into the surrounding forest. Aramis disappeared into the surrounding forest, the forest that surrounds the Bastille. Moments later, Aramis saw a horse tied to a tree. Who prepared this horse? Who prepared this horse for Aramis? When he was
D'Artagnan.
D'Artagnan, thank you. When he was in the forest, he saw a horse tied to a tree. He thought of everything. He says that D'Artagnan thought of everything. He mounted the horse. Aramis mounted the horse. And he mounted the horse. He was on the
Fine.
horse. He started to ride the horse. He was on the horse and found a note attached to the saddle. What's the meaning of a saddle? He found a note written by D'Artagnan attached to the saddle of the horse. What's the meaning of a saddle?
The clothes that the horse wears so they can ride it.
Yes, the thing that is put on the horse and you sit on it to ride the horse. The note read what? What was written in the note? Let's read together. It was the right thing to do. I did the right thing to you, Aramis. All for one and one for all. Good luck, old friend D'Artagnan. Aramis smiled and put the letter into his pocket. Then he galloped away from the Bastille as quickly as he could. What's the meaning of galloped away? He galloped away from the Bastille as quickly as he could. He ran away.
On the horse.
Thank you. He ran away from the Bastille as quickly as he could. The former musketeer knew exactly where he was going. Where was Aramis going? Huh? Who can guess? Huh? Where
To
was
rescue
Aramis?
Philip.
Thank
rescue
you.
Philip.
To rescue Philip. Thank you. To rescue Philip, or to rescue Philip from the island of Saint Margaret. Thank you. So the former musketeer knew exactly where he was going, to the island of Saint Margaret, to free the man in the iron mask, a man whose only crime was what? Don't read, huh? A man whose only crime was what?
He was the
That
brother of the king.
he is the brother or the identical twin of the king. Thank you. A man whose only crime was that he was the brother of the king. It was, after all, the right thing to do. Did you enjoy the story? Did you enjoy the story, my dear students? Was it interesting? Was it an interesting story? Did you all enjoy it? Did you all enjoy it? Was it an interesting story? What do you feel about the story? I want your opinions. Did it touch your heart? Did it touch your heart? I think it touched your hearts. I think you felt sorry for Philip. And you felt sorry for Porthos. Okay. Now, let's answer the questions, the booklet questions, page 37. Page 37, booklet questions, chapter 10, number 1. Yes, Lee.
What is the meaning of clock?
Cloak. The cloak that you wear in winter, the long, it's not, we
Something
can
like
say
wool?
something
Kind
like
of a long jacket. Like a
yes,
long jacket
yes,
that
yes,
has
a
a
long,
hood.
yes, it's a long jacket that you wear in winter.
And it has a big hood.
It's made of wool. It's made of wool.
And it has a big hoodie.
Thank you, darling. Number 1. Who came to see Aramis in his prison? Why? Don't look at the answer. Answer this question in your own words. Yes, please. who came to see Aramis in his prison. Why? Who came to see Aramis in his prison? Why?
Miss,
Yes, Ali. Yes,
a
Ali.
priest who was wearing the cloak, and he
Yes.
went to
And
Aramea.
this cloak covered what? Covered his face.
His
He
face.
doesn't want anyone to know him. Ah,
And he
okay.
went to
He came
listen
and
to
he listened to
Aramea's
some
confession.
confession. Thank you.
Then
His voice was what to Aramis? His voice
he
was
was familiar.
familiar to Aramis. Thank you, darling. Thank you, Ali. So write down the answer. A priest wearing a cloak which covered his face came to the Bastille to listen to Aramis's confession. The priest's voice was rough and low, but Aramis was sure it was familiar. Number 2. I knew it was you. Comment. I knew it was you. Comment.
Aramis
Noor,
said
you're not.
to himself
Yes, Mary.
after priest who was D'Artagnan came to visit him, and he found the key in the Bible that he gave him.
Thank you, darling. Aramis said this to himself when he opened the Bible. The priest gave him. Aramis said this to himself when he opened the Bible. The priest gave him. He found a key in his. He found a key to his jail cell inside the Bible. He knew that the priest who came to see him and give him the Bible was his friend D'Artagnan, who wanted to help him. Number 3. What did D'Artagnan leave Aramis in the forest? What did D'Artagnan leave Aramis in the forest? What did he leave for him in the forest? What did D'Artagnan leave for Aramis in the forest? What did he leave for him?
You leave him a horse.
He left him a horse tied to a tree, and what else?
A
He
letter.
left him a note. A letter is a long writing, but a note, it's only 2 lines or 2 sentences. So D'Artagnan left Aramis a horse tied to a tree and a note that is attached to what?
That he
A note
the right
that is attached to the saddle. And he told him, a saddle, yes. D'Artagnan left Aramis a horse tied to a tree and a note attached to the saddle, in which he wrote to Aramis that was right what he had done, and that all for one and one for all. 4. Where did Aramis go after leaving the forest? Why? Where did Aramis go after leaving the forest? Where did he go after leaving the forest?
He
Forest, and why?
Rushed to Saint Margaret
to
to save the man in the iron mask because it was the right thing to do, like what D'Artagnan wrote him.
Thank you, darling. Thank you, Mariam. Aramis went to the island of Saint Margaret to free or to rescue or to save the man in the iron mask, as it was, after all, the right thing to do, as D'Artagnan had written to him. Now, my dear students, who wants to ask a question? Does any one of you have a question? Does any one of you have a question?
Yes.
Yes, Lily. Yes, darling.
In the class, Miss, you're going to explain the O level, yes, the O level, and in the online sessions, you are going to explain A level.
Next Thursday, I'm going to explain the direct and indirect speech, the reported speech, the grammar lesson that you're going to have in the A level and the O level. You have this lesson, this grammar lesson, the reported speech in the O level and the A level. So next Thursday, I'm going to explain the reported speech in the class. I'm not
Yes,
going to
but
explain it here. I'm not going to explain it online. I'm going
yes,
to
but
explain it in class. The grammar, I'm going to explain the grammar in class because I need the board. When I explain this lesson, I need the board.
يعني in the second Thursday,
Yes,
Tuesday, what you are
the
going to
coming
do?
Thursday. The coming Thursday, I'm going to explain the reported speech in class. I explained it to class 9B yesterday. Next Thursday, I'm going to explain it to classes A, C, and D in class. The reported speech.
Next Thursday, this Thursday, you are
Okay?
going to explain it to 9.
Next
C?
Thursday. Pardon?
Next Thursday,
Pardon?
this Thursday,
I
you are
can't hear
going
you
to
well.
explain it
Yes.
to 9C.
The reported speech in class. The direct and the indirect speech. Okay? Now, does any one of you have any question on the story? Does any one of you have any question on the story? Hmm? Who wants to ask a question on the story?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Same.
Ali. Now, okay. Now, dear students, excuse me, I must leave. I will catch up with you later next Monday. Thank you so much for attending the session and for your participation. Goodbye and love you, and I love you all.